Hello, this is Tom, or Tom Monica, or Tom Monica Comics as you may see me online, and today I'm going to draw and ramble. Today I'm going to be working on something that is long overdue. If you've been watching me or following my content for any given while, I said a while ago I was working on an idea for a Newsies fan comic that was then never heard of again, that I did not update on, and occasionally said, oh no, I am working on it, it is a work in progress. Alas, I've only just now gotten around to the notion of properly getting to it, which is very exciting for me. I'm quite happy about actually getting some comic content out there. So I think I'm going to start from the foreground and work my way back, just so I don't end up working on elements that won't actually end up being visible in the piece, because that'd be a bit of a waste of time. If you do hear any rain in the background, it has just started raining fairly heavily, which is very pretty to see, but doesn't always make for the best audio, so hopefully it doesn't end up too much of a disruption. On the topic of last week where I was talking about queer books, I have become the victim of consumerism, and I have started reading Heated Rivalry, and I'm enjoying it so far. It is what it is, you go into Heated Rivalry fully knowing what you're getting into. But I have one solid gripe, and it's not with the content of the book itself, it's nothing to do with the writing or anything like that. It is purely the fact that if you look at the cover, or at least the illustrated cover that exists for it, and again, this is no hate to the artist that did this cover, it's a very nice cover, but as an ice hockey player, a former ice hockey player, might I add, and just, I don't even think you need to be an ice hockey player. If you look at the way that the sticks are being held, both of the hands on both of their sticks are palm down, which, again, I don't know if you guys are kind of familiar with ice hockey, but that's not how you hold a hockey stick. That's not going to allow you to move the puck very well. That's just going to be you holding a rod sideways. There's no manoeuvring you can do with that. Usually it's the top hand is palm down and the bottom hand is palm up. And I was reading it last night, and I kind of looked back at the cover because it's got one of those annoying not stickers that they put on a lot of modern books nowadays that you can't remove, that are very irritating. But I was looking over the cover and I was looking at the art of the characters, seeing what I could see, and just, I picked up on that, and it thoroughly has just sat on my brain ever since, and I'm not particularly happy about it. But the book is still amazing, and the cover art is still amazing. It's just a silly little gripe that I noticed, me being nitpicky. Although, on the topic of book covers, if I really wanted to put my money where my mouth is in terms of complaining about the book cover, I am part of, I don't know if anyone will have seen, a lovely group of people, a group of my friends who are all creatives, who are all storytellers, and we have created a small publishing house business amongst ourselves called Curious Inkworks. I've not said much about them yet, which I honestly should have, because they've been doing an amazing job of promoting it, so consider this my gateway into promoting it. I will link some of their socials in the description. They are an amazing group of writers and dear friends of mine. We stream on TikTok every so often, just our little, almost similar to this of Me Do Draw With Me's, but instead of drawing, it's sitting while we're all writing, kind of a body doubling experience if you would, where we all just kind of sit and get productive. I say that, most of the time we end up getting distracted and chatting through it anyways, but sometimes we do actually get some work done. So if you guys wanted, pay attention to, particularly my friend Leslie Sharp tends to be the one who hosts these live streams, so please feel free to go follow her and the rest of us to keep updated as to when we do those streams. I'm very excited for all the books to come out. I have been absolutely loving them. Lots of high fantasy, YA stuff going on, and it's really, really cool, so I'm super excited about it. The rain seems to be dying down a little bit now. I am British through and through, in that I actually love the rain. I don't gel well with summer. I get almost reverse seasonal depression. I love winter. It's when I'm all happy and cozy and feeling good, and then summer comes around and then I just become mildly homicidal, and it's not it's not great. It's not the best. I would much rather it be rainy and dreary and cloudy. I'll do a couple of days. Let's say a couple of days in the middle of the year, or a couple of days every few months, where it's a solid 20 degrees Celsius, and anything beyond that is taking the mick a little bit. I do not gel well with the summer. I don't gel well with summer because it's too hot. Spring, I get pretty terrible hay fever, so I don't do too well with that. But autumn, I am fully one of those basic white girls that I love. I love autumn, I love pumpkins, I love cozy browns and autumnal colours. I just like it. I just think it's neat. It's cold enough that you can wear a jacket, but it's warm enough that you don't have to wear a jacket, if that makes sense. That's my indicator for perfect weather. My hands are super shaky today, and I don't appreciate it. If I turn my stabilizer up a little bit, or if I just accept my fate. Let's see, I'm going to turn my stabilization up a tiny bit. Just a little. Yeah, that helps. Again, the mild cheats of digital art is that I can turn up the stabilization, and then my shaky caffeinated hands don't have to worry about being as precise. If the audio sounds a fair bit different this time, it'll be because I am using an entirely different setup than last time. It turned into a bit of a situation in that initially I just wanted to get rid of the background noise, so I got some recommendations from my friend who works in AV and tech and things like that, and I tried to record it on my computer, went to edit and thingy a video that is now lost media, now no longer exists, because it turns out that I recorded about 27 minutes of silence. I was talking to myself for all of those minutes, but as it turns out, apparently the computer didn't agree, and I just had 27 minutes of silence, which was, well, not entertaining, very frustrating for me. I had to take a moment to hyperventilate into my hands before I came up with a solution, but we did end up coming up with a solution, so all's well that ends well, and hopefully this ends up sounding a little bit better. God, the only issue with rain, like pulling back up on my hay fever, is that it kind of washes up the pollen, so I do end up a little bit sniffly. I'm going to try and edit out any sniffles that may happen during the course of this recording, so you guys don't have to listen to me sneeze and sniffle. It's quite interesting, actually. Obviously, I mentioned that I've got a friend who works in tech and AV, and as someone who has been on the acting side of theatre, it's been really interesting getting to see what the other side of theatre experience is. It's changed the way that I approach going to watch things at the theatre, because I'm noticing more about the lighting, I'm noticing more about the audio cues, and all the different ways that the effects are used to enhance what the actors are doing, and it's very much a harmonious, amazing little choreography between the two of them. And it's really fun to learn. Bring flowers for your tech team. They do a lot. And they don't get to... Sometimes they get to bow at the end, but a lot of the time they're not appreciated much as the actors, and I feel like they should be. Although, speaking of audio, last Christmas I... Don't break into Wham. It's not necessary. Last Christmas I got a record player, and I have been obsessed with it ever since. I am such a sucker for collecting second-hand vinyls. And one of my favourite things to do with it is pick up vinyls of things I haven't even heard of, or bands that I've kind of heard of, but couldn't name you one of their songs. Pick up vinyls that aren't even for specific bands, they're just a collection of songs. It's such a cool way to discover music, because particularly with secondhand, it's not like you're splashing £30 on, or whatever your monetary equivalent is, on a vinyl. A lot of the time you can get them from like £1 to £5 from charity shops and things like that. And it just... So if you don't like it, you've only spent £1 to £5, depending on what your current budget is. And if you do, you're going to discover a whole new world of music that you wouldn't have come across before, because it sounds bad to say that you're forced to listen to it, but obviously you can't unless you've got a record player that can do this, but I don't currently have that. You don't have the option to skip through songs that you don't know or don't initially catch you, and you actually end up discovering that maybe you like certain genres or certain songs that you didn't think you would. and I just think it's neat. I just think it's neat. More or less done with. I'm going to go back in, obviously, and add some more details and blocking out and stuff once I'm a bit more solid with it, but that is most of what I need for the foreground sorted. Part of what's held me back so much in creating this comic content is the concept of scripting. Again, I don't know if any of you guys are comic creators yourselves, but scripts in comics comic writing is a complicated situation. Because obviously you can approach it like a screenplay where you just have straight up, you write it like a screenplay. And that can be extremely useful, especially if you're collaborating, where you are a writer and you're passing your story off to an artist. That is probably one of your best ways to approach it in order to give them the most pure version of your creative vision. But when you're working as a solo creator, particularly as someone who works quite visually, having to write out an entire story and then have to almost repeat yourself the entire time. Like, it's not just, oh, I've written this story and now it's done, look at this awesome story. It's, look at this cool story that I had to sit through a way that I'm not entirely comfortable creating it, and now I get to create it the way that I wanted to, but now the fun is sucked out of it because I'm just copy-pasting what I've already come up with. It becomes quite draining and it feels redundant after a certain while. So, something that I've discovered that's actually helped me move on a lot quicker is the notion of using the Marvel method as a solo creator. For those of you that aren't familiar, the Marvel method was created by Stan Lee as a way to allow for artists to have a little more creative liberty. It created a lot of shortcuts in the writing process, where essentially a writer would give a concept, maybe just a kind of general overview of what they want a scene or a page to look like or contain, keeping it pretty vague, pretty fast and loose, and then handing that off to an artist who will then proceed to adapt that in their view of what they think that should be like. Then, once they've created those pages, or a page, or for however long they intended to have it, they'll then pass it back to the writer will check it over, see if it's close enough to what they were thinking, and then they will add in the dialogue and things like that. And the method itself, in terms of collaboration, is a little hit or miss, particularly in a professional setting where maybe you're not going to be able to communicate your artistic vision the best you could with a stranger who's not totally going to get your vibe. And it also puts a lot more work on the artist's shoulders without often compensatory pay. But it's actually a very, very handy tool in a solo creator's toolbox, because instead of having to write out a full-blown script that basically only you is going to read anyway, what you can do is just give yourself a vague, like, okay, I want this scene to be this and this, and I want it to convey this, then mentally pass that off to yourself as the artist, and be like, well, okay, how would I communicate that part in a page, and how would I communicate this part in a page, and how can I paste this and make this visually interesting? And then pass it back to yourself as a writer, and then fill in the blanks of word bubbles and dialogue and sound effects and things like that. And I just think it's neat. That's the word of the day. Word of the day. Be who you are for you. But yes, I found keeping it pretty fast and loose and allowing me to tell a story more artistically than having to worry about writing it all out beforehand has been super duper helpful in getting me to work a lot quicker. I am super excited at the fact that I get to get this little fan comic out there. It's unfortunate that I'm going to have to see how I go. I've had some ideas for little stickers and things like that related to Snoozies, because I do want to create cool little stuff for you guys to have. But you've got to be careful with fan art. This topic for The Odd Ones Out has actually already covered in terms of fan art and conventions, but it exists in this weird grey area of legality and copyright, where you're profiting off of someone else's intellectual property, but the people who are engaging and giving you those profits aren't people who don't know the original source material. They are fans of the original source material who have probably given their money to the original source material, And it's a tricky middle ground. Particularly because sometimes it could be considered free advertisement. There's several occasions where fan art of something has encouraged me to engage with actual media that I hadn't seen before, just because I thought that fan art was so cool, and I wanted to see what the inspiration was from. And at times you've also got to consider what you're doing with that intellectual property. I know that Disney has been back and forth on its gay rights stuff, but I don't know how they'd feel about me profiteering off of and making their intellectual property gay and kissing. Good lord, trying to draw figures that are just... they're not the main focus, but they're focused enough that you need to make them look okay. One of the most awkward things ever, because you don't have a set out design for them. Do you know what I think I need to do? I need to create a lineup of characters that can just exist as background fodder. So anytime I need to draw a background character, I already have a preset set of designs that I can add in. I'm pretty sure that's what people do professionally, and I'm just being lazy and I'm not caught up with the times. Because other times I do really enjoy adding background characters. When it's super background, where the accuracy to the setting isn't going to matter all that much, I love throwing in Easter eggs. You see it happen in animation and things like that as well. It's something that's super fun to do, particularly when you've got multiple things that you engage with, especially where I'm creating my own comic series, being able to throw my characters in the background of fan art, and then also being able to throw fan characters in the background of my individual comics. It's good fun. It's cool stuff. I don't know how I feel about this. I will create it for now and then see how we go. It's too detailed. It's too detailed for how small it's going to be. Word of advice that I've not been doing, that I really should be doing: try not to zoom in on your digital art, because that's when you start to give way too much tiny detail to things that really do not need to be tiny detailed. You know, this character is very much background scene filler, just populating the page. They don't need to have an expression and a full-blown story behind them. Sometimes it's nice to create background Easter eggs, but not everyone needs to be important on a page. It's important to create that visual hierarchy, and this dude does not need to be important. Sorry, guy. Sorry, you are not important. Creating fan art for something that's set from a historical period is also extremely strange. The things that you wouldn't think you'd need to check for historical accuracy, like, I'll be perfectly sure, I'm not sure that this phone is going to be 100% accurate. It's probably going to be just blocked out as black, so I don't have to worry about the details of it. I don't know if all the clothes and how people would dress is entirely historically accurate. I don't know if even the original Newsy source material is entirely historically accurate, because it's an adaptation of what actually happened. It's not actually the characters and such. But the things that you do end up checking, I spent a whole 30 minutes looking into the history of fire extinguishers, and what kind of fire extinguisher would be historically accurate for someone to have in the 1950s UK, which is where my series Copper Flame is set. Kind of 50s to 60s UK setting. And yeah, it was a very interesting task to take on, because, again, it's something that you never really think about, but then it's just kind of there, and you have to end up dealing with it. But now I'm rewriting it a little bit, and I don't even know if that information is going to be necessary. So, que sera, sera. It is how it is. 20% of what you make is 80% of all your profits and things like that. Sometimes you do things and it's going to be for naught, but it's a learning experience either way. Now I know that if I ever do need to go into the history of fire extinguishers, I will have the capacity to do so. Alrighty, I feel like that's a solid enough of me nattering, so I'm going to cut you guys to the time-lapse. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys next time.